Have you ever wondered why the Rockefeller family is insanely wealthy? Spoiler alert, it wasn't an accident. It was all by design. The secrets of the Rockefellers aren't just for the mega rich. Their approach to building and protecting wealth is something any of us can learn from. They used a set framework repeatedly to ensure they didn't just gather wealth, but they kept it. So what's the secret sauce? It boils down to a framework that the Rockefellers repeated over and over to minimize taxes, build generational wealth, and this framework you can use as well. I like to analogize the Rockefeller framework to a boat. Imagine that your wealth is a boat. That boat doesn't need to just keep sailing for you. You want it to keep sailing for every generation to come. For this to happen, the boat needs three things. First, a captain. When you are alive, that's you and your spouse. When you're gone, you need guidance and direction to carry things on and clearly communicate and educate the next generation. Number two, you need a boat, a vehicle that's going to hold on to the assets, provide for your family. This vehicle is your estate plan, which includes trusts, and this vehicle needs to be set up in a way to protect everyone inside and to minimize taxes as well. We'll talk about that. Third, you need fuel. The boat's fuel is the assets when you are alive. But what happens when you're gone? How do you make sure that that boat has enough fuel for future generations and that fuel reserve grows? That's where the Rockefellers utilized life insurance. A great example to understand the power of the Rockefeller framework is the contrast between the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts. Now, arguably, the Vanderbilts were wealthier at that first generation level. But in the end, the Rockefellers won. How are we measuring winning? Well, whose wealth continued generation after generation? The Vanderbilt wealth eroded over time. The Rockefellers' wealth has preserved over time. So what's the difference? The Rockefellers followed a strategy, the Vanderbilts did not. So let's talk more about the Rockefeller strategy and this boat analogy. So let's start with the captain. Clear communication and education for your children and future generations. The Rockefellers created a family constitution to provide future generations with guidance on managing and preserving their wealth. This document outlined their values, principles, and expectations, ensuring that the family's legacy would be upheld for generations to come. They used this constitution to form the rules and governance for their estate planning documents as well. In Chapter 7 of my book, Legally Ever After, I walk you through the exercise of coming up with a family mission statement, which is really similar to what the Rockefellers did. You can download a free copy of my book at lawmotherco.com, and I'll include the link in the description of this video. Next, let's talk about the boat, the vehicle for passing down assets. The Rockefellers understood that they needed a vehicle to protect their assets, and that vehicle was trust and estate planning documents. In the US, there are three main things you need to protect your assets from. The first is death. When you pass away and you don't have a trust in place, the assets go through a government process called probate. And probate costs money and time. To avoid probate, the Rockefellers utilized trusts. Next, disaster, lawsuits and divorce. The Rockefellers utilized trusts, which protected the assets from divorce and lawsuits. Next, taxes. Now in the US, we deal with two types of taxes at death, federal estate tax and state, and in some states at the state level, there are also inheritance and estate taxes. This is a tax on the wealth you pass on, and the Rockefellers utilized trusts to minimize and eliminate these taxes. Now, what types of trusts did the Rockefellers use? Well, there are two main categories of trusts, revocable and irrevocable trusts. The Rockefellers used both. Now, for most people watching this video, a good place to start is a revocable living trust. A revocable living trust protects from probate. It's revocable, meaning you can change it throughout the rest of your life, and you can put things in and out of it. You also maintain control over the assets in the trust. Now, some families also add another layer of protection, which is irrevocable trusts. These are non-changeable trusts. Now, for many of my clients, we put together first a revocable trust, and then we also put together revocable trusts that become irrevocable when the person passes away. This means that their decisions are locked in when they pass away. And we often have revocable trusts flow to irrevocable trusts so that their kids are protected from future creditors and divorces. Now, some of my high net worth clients also put in place irrevocable trusts in life. And these are more complicated and not for everyone. You really want to work with an experienced lawyer in your state to set up an irrevocable trust correctly. And with irrevocable trusts, they're often used to minimize or eliminate estate taxes, but there's a trade-off. You're giving up control of those assets during your life. Finally, let's talk about the fuel. And this is truly remarkable. The fuel that the Rockefellers used was insurance, and specifically life insurance. Now, let me caution you here because there are some life insurance sales tactics and products that I do not stand by. However, the right life insurance policies and the right circumstances can be very powerful. So let me explain how the Rockefellers use life insurance and what you can take away for yourself. Life insurance is simply a contract where you pay a premium and the life insurance company guarantees something in return. For example, you pay for a benefit that when you pass away, your heirs will receive. Rockefellers utilize life insurance in their trust. The trust purchased life insurance policies on family members within it, and it created a waterfall. So each parent had a life insurance policy on themselves that when they died, the benefits of the policy went back into the trust. And then when each child was born, a new life insurance policy was purchased, and when that person passed away, the money went back into the trust for future generations. They built a mandate within the trust for each future generation having a life insurance policy. So there was perpetual wealth growth. This made the Rockefeller family one of the wealthiest families. So regardless of whether a person contributed to the family in their life, the life insurance policy was purchased at their birth, and the trust wealth would continue to go up when they die, ensuring generational wealth. So how does this apply to you? I'm not saying buy millions of dollars of life insurance. If you can afford it, it might be worthwhile. What I am saying is you should consider buying the right amount of insurance for your family and your circumstance. If you have disposable income you are not using, how can you best invest it in a way that will set up future generations? Start doing it now. Don't delay. It may mean that you invest that excess in real estate. It may be that you put it in a 529 account. But for many of you, contributing some amount into a life insurance policy will make sense. And every day you delay getting life insurance becomes more expensive because it's based on your age and your health. And many people, because of their health, can't qualify for life insurance if they wait too long. So if you are in good health right now, it's time to look into life insurance. Especially if you have young kids, it is time to look into life insurance. Now, I want to cover the two main categories of life insurance. There is term and permanent life insurance. Term is like renting the life insurance. It's only in place for a certain time, say 10, 20, or 30 years. It's less expensive, so there are lower fees. Because there really isn't a guaranteed payout, there's only a payout if you die within that time window. So if you are in your income producing years right now and you have young kids, it's worth looking into term life insurance, especially if you don't have the nest egg to cover things. Why? Because if you were to die today, your kids and your spouse depend on you and they need that money to get by. For me, for example, when I had my first child, I got a $2 million life insurance policy on me. When I had a second child, I got another $2 million life insurance policy on me. I did it for a 30-year term, and so if I die in the next 30 years, I know that my spouse and my kids will be taken care of. It gives me peace of mind every time I have to go on a business trip and get on a plane. And it costs me under $200 a month. Now, permanent life insurance, also known as whole life insurance, is a little more controversial. You are owning life insurance. It has a guaranteed payout when you pass away, so it's more expensive. And it's not for everyone. There are more fees with these types of policies, and you really want to do your due diligence before investing in them. Often they have a cash value, which means a portion of every dollar you put in to an account, you also have the ability to borrow against. If you utilize it the right way, you may have heard of the term infinite banking, and that's what the Rockefellers did. For example, the Rockefellers amassed a large amount of whole life insurance policies with cash value. So when an heir wanted to buy a house, they could take a loan against that life insurance policy, and they didn't have to qualify for a mortgage. They became their own family bank. Now, you don't have to be a billionaire to utilize this strategy, but you do have to do proper planning and understand the costs associated. So you shouldn't jump in because you watched a YouTube video. You should talk to someone who knows what they are doing and understands your circumstances. Really understand all the options and also understand what happens if something goes wrong and you can't pay a premium. All of these strategies we've talked about today require time and attention. My call to action for you today, if you are wanting to create generational wealth, start now. Get the right estate plan in place. And know that it's something that can evolve over time. If you like this video, I recommend you download a free copy of my best-selling book, Legally Ever After, to get a better understanding of the steps to protect your family and their future. I'll link it in the description. And watch my video linked here on the 5 living trust mistakes and how to avoid them. You'll get a good overview on the best way to protect your loved ones and the common mistakes to avoid.